On the previous training mission, we learned how to do a cold start on the Sikorsky UH-60L helicopter for DCS. We will now build on that knowledge and perform a ground taxi towards the Andersen Air Force Base runway, followed by a rolling takeoff. The mission includes the following sections. Before taxi. Ground taxi. Hover check. Before takeoff. Takeoff. The approximation feet above ground level. Press spacebar to begin. If the cockpit interior is too dark, activate the flashlight with left Alt plus L. If the yellow cross cursor is not visible, press left Alt plus left Shift plus C to show it. You can adjust the sound volume produced by the background air traffic by moving the in-cockpit sound slider on the DCS options audio screen, which you can access by pressing the escape key. This instructor's volume level can be adjusted with the helmet sound slider. Also, you can press spacebar to skip long voiceovers. Press spacebar to continue. 8.25. Before taxi. First, we will contact the air traffic controller to request clearance to taxi. Using what you learned on the previous mission, select the UHF radio, number 2, and use its preset number 5 to contact ATC. Once you have the communications panel and the UHF radio prepared, click the PTT button that you have bound on your HOTAS to get the radio communications menu. On the communications menu, select F5, ATC, F1, Andersen Air Force Base, F3, Request Startup. Unfortunately, DCS does not detect that our aircraft is already started, so we must request startup again even if it's not needed. The communications menu should be still open. Select F1. Request taxi to runway. After a few seconds, the ATC should clear you to taxi to a designated runway. Take note of the runway that has been assigned. On this mission, ATC should assign runway 6 Lima.
Anfield 1-1. Clear to taxi to runway 6. Path 1.
5. Doors. Confirm they are closed and secure. 6. Parking brake. Released. Confirm that the parking brake is off. 7. Tail wheel switch. Set to unlock, as we will be steering to the left on the upcoming taxiway. Lock it once you are steering straight over the runways, and unlock before attempting another turn on the ground. 8. Taxi light. As needed. For this mission we will extend it during the taxi and takeoff. One 600-watt landing light is mounted on the left side, beneath the nose. The light will be extended 107 degrees from its start position. The light needed to control the light are shown on the figure. 9. Helmet mounted sight. As needed. Enable it for this flight by switching the highlighted switch to on, with a right click, or use the left Control plus H keys. The control bindings needed to adjust the HUD brightness are shown on the figure. 8.27. Ground taxi. We will now describe the control inputs that you will use for ground taxi. To visualize them better, enable the controls indicator UH-60, using the key shown on the figure. Good. Now move the cyclic forward to about 1/4 of its travel. Observe the movement on the indicator. You can press the trim release binding to hold the cyclic at that position. Note that you need to immediately release the cyclic, to avoid having the cyclic force applied twice. Press spacebar once you have the cyclic on the proper attitude. Next, increase the collective lever to no more than 25% torque. This should start forward movement of the helicopter. Regulate the taxi speed with cyclic and or collective. Control the steering using the anti-torque pedals. Use wheel brakes as required. Once the helicopter begins moving, press the wheel brakes to test them, using your toe brakes or the W key. Good. Now release the brakes, and let the helicopter begin to advance again. You can steer the helicopter using the anti-torque pedals, or the keys Z and X. This is Street D. Use the pedals to turn left, and proceed west, towards the end of the runway. Be careful of other traffic that may be near you. Good, you are now on Street D. Proceed on a heading of 246 degrees, along its yellow center line. Remember to lock the tail wheel, to have more stability on the straightaways. For this mission, we will taxi towards runway 6 Lima via this Street D. On the left is a diagram of the route you will have to follow. On the briefing there is a diagram of this airbase for your reference. Do not exceed 15 knots while taxiing, or the helicopter can tip over when turning. Also, the pedal steering gets too sensitive at higher speeds. Do not exceed 15 knots while taxiing, or the helicopter can tip over when turning. Also, the pedal steering gets too sensitive at higher speeds. Street F is just ahead. Reduce speed and unlock the tail wheel. At the intersection, turn left to take Street F, towards the runway. Good, you are now on Street F. Proceed on a heading of 155 degrees, along its yellow center line. You may need to add a bit more collective, as there is a slight gradient. You are now almost at the runway 6 Lima. Stop just short of entering it and call ATC for clearance. Good. Now contact ATC by clicking the PTT button that you have bound on your hoods. Select F1. Request takeoff. Press spacebar once ATC has given the clearance.
In field 1-1, request takeoff. Field 1-1, unable to clear for takeoff. In field 1-1, request takeoff.
Release brakes to let the helicopter advance, and then turn left to enter the runway. Align with its center line, and stop the aircraft for a final check. Once you are aligned with the runway center line, bring the aircraft to a halt. 8.28. Before takeoff. 1. Engine power control levers. Check that they are on the fly position. 2. Systems. Check. Perform a quick check of the engine and transmission displays. 3. Avionics. As required. Confirm that the radio and navigation equipment is set. 8.29. Takeoff. Release wheel brakes and move the cyclic forward of neutral. This will start forward movement of the helicopter. Smoothly increase the collective lever while controlling heading with the anti-torque pedals, as the helicopter gains speed. Liftoff. Keep the helicopter level with small movements of the cyclic. You might need to pull the cyclic back a bit, to prevent the helicopter from staying too close to the ground. Strive to keep the runway heading until you reach the end of it, with small cyclic and rudder pedals movements. Once level and on the correct heading, smoothly add collective to climb and attain a higher speed. Good, you have reached the end of the runway. You may now climb until you reach at least 1,000 feet above sea level. You have reached your cruise altitude of 1,000 feet above sea level. Congratulations! You have managed to taxi, take off, and perform a climb to reach an altitude of 1,000 feet. You have successfully finished this training mission. Press spacebar to end this mission.